In 5, 4, 3, 2. Hello! I'm so excited to be in this space with you guys. Today's President's Day. And so in honor of President's Day, we have a really, really special guest on Street You Grew Up On. We are going to be talking to my favorite, my forever president, Tony Goldwyn. So I'm very excited to hear all about his Once Upon a Time and the street that he grew up on. And so let's jump in. Hi! Oh, it's so good to see you.
Hi. I can't see. Oh, there you are. Sorry.
Oh my God.
Hi, sweetheart. I miss you.
It's so amazing to see you. I miss you too. Oh my gosh. How are you doing?
I'm good. Yeah.
Yeah?
I'm in New York. Everything's good.
You look great.
Good. Thanks. So do you.
Okay, so I want to talk to you about the street that you grew up on.
Yeah. First of all, can I interrupt?
Yeah.
I watched some of the other interviews. This is such a fantastic idea.
Oh, you're so sweet.
It's
Thank
really
you.
fun. Yeah.
Did you watch my mom's? Hers is the best.
No, that'll be on next. No, I watched Jimmy Kimmel and
Yeah.
who did I watch? A few other Issa.
Oh,
And,
awesome.
yeah. Anyway, they were great. I watched your
Yay.
mom. That's
Yeah,
okay.
hers is hands down the best episode.
Oh, cool. Okay.
No
good.
offense, Jimmy Kimmel and Issa Rae. So tell me about the street you grew up on. What was the name of the street? What city? What state?
Okay, so I grew up on a street called Tiger Tail Road.
Of course you did. Tiger Tail Road. In the year of the tiger, no less.
Yes.
Okay. Tiger Tail Road.
So Tiger Tail is in Los Angeles.
Ah.
So I grew up in Southern California. And what can I tell you about Tiger Tail? This was in the 60s and 70s. So it really was a different time growing up than when I raised my kids. Because as I'm sure your parents tell you and stuff, we just went out the door.
Yeah. There's so much
the
freedom.
only rule was come back at dinner time, be back home for supper in time to wash yourself off and be presentable at the table. So,
And what was the street like? Were there a lot of houses on the street? Was it residential?
It's a pretty suburban residential. LA is really a collection of suburbs.
Yeah.
So Tiger Tail is on a hill, so it's kind of is nestled into kind of the Santa Monica Mountains there. So it was on a windy hill. It's a very windy street. So we didn't have any sidewalks, which was, kind of dangerous. There were many serious bike accidents. I got hit by a car on a skateboard.
No.
Yeah. Sort of a steep hill. But yes, we lived on our bikes really. So you'd go and ride to each other. So it's quite a fun neighborhood of kids. And it was just it was great. First, I have older siblings, or did then, because my little brother and sister are much younger than me. And so I just kind of tagged along with them wherever they went.
And did you share a room? Did you have your own room in the house? What was the house like?
It was a mix. There were 4 kids for my mom and dad, and then 2 more down the road for my dad and stepmom. But so in the early years, my brother John and I shared a bedroom.
Mm-hmm. Where are you in the order of siblings?
I'm the bottom. I'm the last. I'm the youngest of 4.
Oh, wow.
So,
the baby. This explains so much.
You didn't know this?
If I had known.
Yeah. So John and I shared a bedroom until my older sister, Catherine, who's 9 years older than me, when she kind of got out of high school, then we got our own rooms. Because there was a free bedroom. So then we had separate rooms.
And what were the sounds in your house? Was there music in your house? Were there a lot of people around?
I love that. Yeah, lots of people.
Oh.
The sounds were in early childhood. What really comes back to me are the Beatles constantly playing.
Wow. Who was playing them? Your parents, your siblings?
My sister, and then my parents. So my sister Catherine, who was, a young teenager in the 60s.
Wow.
He was obsessed. So one of my earliest memories was when the Beatles came to Los Angeles to play at the Hollywood Bowl and were on the Ed Sullivan Show. And it was a major cultural event. that the Beatles had come to America. That was like 1964. So
Wow.
I was, what, 3 or 4 years old.
And you remember?
Vividly remember it. And then my sister went to the Hollywood Bowl to the concert, and my mom took her because she was 13, I think. And my mother said that she couldn't hear a note of music because being so loud.
Screaming.
So the Beatles were big. The Beatles, and then other, big 60s bands. I remember Donovan, They Call Me Mellow Yellow, if anybody remembers that song, which was,
I'm going to look it up.
I don't
know it.
I have this, They Call Me Mellow Yellow. So yes, what is now classic rock was just constantly playing in our house. And my parents, listened to it too, but it was really my older siblings. What other sounds? Dogs.
Oh,
We
did you always have
dogs.
Oh, okay.
And the sound of dog nails clattering across the floor, because in the downstairs of our floors, and my mom always had, the dogs would follow her everywhere. And being a woman who grew up in Manhattan, she walked very fast all the time. So she'd walk through the house and the dogs would paddle up to her, and then every time she
her little gang would follow her around. And with their wood floors, so they were sliding around trying to chase
and our
her.
house was a disaster. Like, the floors were all scratched up. Upstairs there was a runner carpet through the hallways, and with like periodic dog pee stains throughout the house. So the house smelled
lived in.
Yeah, very well smelled of books, food cooking, and wafting dog pee here and there.
What kind of food was being cooked? What were those smells?
Yeah, well, my mom was a really great cook. So she liked to cook sort of French-based cooking, things sort of like Julia Child type.
I was gonna say, it was that Julia Child's era, right? So she was. So did she entertain, or was it like cooking for the kids?
Both.
Or little. Okay.
Both. Every night was. It was kind of great. Every night the dinner was a bit of a thing, a bit of a productive. It was like practical, but she would always make a fabulous meal. So there was it was one of our rituals. Like 7 o'clock, everyone sat down at the table, and there was like a really excellent meal. So sort of where my love of food and cooking came from.
And all the kids, both parents, everybody would sit at 7.
Yeah, I mean, when I was very young, my parent marriage ended when I was 5. So in the early years, the dinner table was
a little tense.
A little tense, or it was sort of like it was a war zone for a few years there. So the kids would be like sitting at the table watching, like.
At least the food was good.
But then they then split up, and my dad moved very close by. So he lived about half a mile away, and we would go back and forth between our parents' house. But every night it was rich. And then when my dad had his own kind of, household, it was the same thing. That family ritual of having dinner together was
special.
Something is very important to me, with my family too.
It's really special. So tell me about this boy, this young Tony. What were your dreams for yourself? Did you have ideas about what you wanted to be? Did you know you wanted to be a fake president of the United States?
You, more than most people, know me well enough. No. I would have been diagnosed for sure with ADD when I was a kid. So literally, I lived in a kind of dream world. All of my fantasies were like, wanting to imagine myself as a professional ski racer, or a warrior of some kind, or some sort of superhero, or like they were outsized fantasies. There was no practical, like,
the delusions of grandeur started early. The grandeur started early.
Yes, my delusions of grandeur started early. I didn't think about being an actor really, other than, I don't know, the normal fantasies of being world famous for something. I don't know.
Well, but that's kind of interesting because you did choose a profession where you could pursue, you could be president, you could be Tarzan, you could be like all of these incredible, larger than life
Yeah,
people.
I think a lot of us, a lot of our, friends and colleagues found the ability to focus when I discovered theater. But that was in high school. I was about 14. Up until then, I literally was in a dream. I didn't do particularly well in school because I couldn't concentrate.
What about theater allowed you to focus, do you
I don't
think?
know. Like the class clown, I was always very disruptive, and but when I started acting, I just found laser concentration. I don't know how. I remember my father being amazed. He said, "I've never seen you concentrate on anything for more than 5 minutes," and I watched you. Yeah, it's a funny thing. The creative process, you dial into a part of your brain that just says, "Oh, this interests me," and I
Wow,
could go,
it's so interesting because I think of you as such a phenomenally focused person. Like as an actor, as a director, I think of you as somebody who's laser focused, so concentrated. I mean, we used to drive you crazy in OPA on Friday nights because you're
That's
so
true.
laser focused and we were not at all.
Where you guys were is how I was as a kid.
That was karma. That
True
was your
yeah,
karma.
but the teacher is saying, like in my case, action.
Please act.
Stop it!
Please
Stop
act.
talking. Yeah, it's just such a funny thing. I don't know. I mean, I guess I did develop it as an adult, but it was finding something that, yeah, that's why with kids, now I find I have tremendous, if I'm working with kids, or certainly my children who are much more disciplined than I ever was, but allowing kids to live in some chaos as they're finding something, as opposed to punishing them or
being
you have to
rigid.
do it this way, you being rigid, because I've seen so many brilliant and creative people just, they got to splash around until they find it.
So I always love telling people that you and I actually met way before Scandal, that we met walking through the real halls of Washington, D.C. when we were members of the Creative Coalition. I believe you were co-president of the Creative Coalition at the time. So when did your interest in politics start? Were you interested in politics, as a young person back on that street you grew up on? Were you curious about power and politics?
Yeah, I was fascinated by it. My family was really engaged politically. My dad was a bit more conservative. My mom and my stepfather they were both painters, and they were, fairly radical liberals. So as a child, the first, other than things like the Vietnam War and the anti-war movement and big seismic events in the 60s when I was a little kid, that were just everyone was aware of them. The Watergate hearings was the first time I really clicked into something and was fascinated, and we watched it, for a year, those hearings, and it was like it was political theater, and that got me engaged. But really, mainly it was that every night at the dinner table, my parents, my stepparents talked about politics and raged about, politics and Nixon, what was going on in those years. And but I must say, I didn't become particularly active until much later. I remember the first time I voted, and that was very exciting. And I was much more politically aware, I think, than a lot of my college classmates. I was actually 20 in my first presidential election, which was Carter and Reagan.
Oh, wow.
1980 was my first time voting. So I was very engaged, but I did not become really active other than always voting and being interested until I was probably in my 30s.
So exciting. It's fun that it seems like you did live in a house where you talked about the ability to create change and the power to participate in politics, that you had a place or a voice that you could impact these decisions.
Yeah, that's true. I guess I felt it more like that it was a privilege and a part of our civic responsibility to be engaged. I didn't think, we're very lucky as, people in sort of public space to have a bit of a platform where when we can speak up on things, you can convene people to talk about an issue like we're doing right now.
Yeah.
I never imagined that, nor did I think about it in terms as active as my kids. For, as you know me, like my daughter Anna,
Yeah.
got very politically active and volunteered, and then started her Project Political Playlist and stuff in her 20s. So she's been, a young activist, and now I didn't do that. I wasn't as active as you were. I started later than you, I think.
Yeah. I want to ask you, because it's President's Day, what we can do to protect voting rights and sort of, to make sure that we're participating in the ways that we should. And then I want to take some questions from our audience. Is that okay?
Yeah, great.
Okay. So what would you say on President's Day that we should be thinking about in terms of protecting voting rights and protecting our democracy?
I got a few things to say, because this is a really, really critically important issue, and I hope that people really understand how critical it is. We sort of were exhausted by the last presidential cycle, I think, and people tend to have an idea that every 4 years is when we need to start paying attention. But 2022 is just massively important, because what's happening is, quietly and not so quietly, people's voting rights are systematically being curtailed, and it's going to be harder and harder to vote. It's going to be more convenient. It might be in small ways, but the barrier that just can get a little bit harder, in some cases much more difficult, and in some cases just a little bit harder. So people bother. And that's a disaster for democracy. So what, we all need to do is a couple of things in my view. Number one, register to vote.
Register to vote.
Also,
Number one.
talk about it with your friends. Like, stay engaged and talk about what's important to you. Because I think the other thing people don't understand is we often think federal elections are everything. But really, where, as Ross Perot used to say, the rubber meets the road is in local and state and
county, community boards, state elections.
Community. Find out who are your representatives and check in with them. Learn how to write your senator, learn who your representatives are in Congress, and reach out to them about things that matter to you. And politics can be so intimidating, it's exhausting, and everyone's just got to go to work and earn a living and put food on the table, and we're all so busy. But it doesn't take too much to just find out a little bit, and then talk with your friends. And then, when it comes time, as we get closer to election day, to talk to your friends about making a planned vote and ask people. I'm sure everyone listening who's engaged already is going to vote. The things I'm talking about, maybe, preaching to the choir. But I think also the conversation is like, so, what matters to you? Are you voting? Do you need help voting? Do you need a ride to the polling places?
Reaching out to your friends and family. Yeah.
And viewing it as a community exercise. But I guess it comes back to the first thing I said, was realizing how critically important participation is, because we do have power, and oftentimes we feel disenfranchised, but we're very, very fortunate with all of the flaws in our system to have the freedom to exercise our citizens. And it does, it really adds up.
No, it's true. The margins in these states are so tiny. You really realize how much every vote truly does count.
Yeah.
Okay. Can we take some questions from the audience?
Yeah, I love it.
Thank you for saying all of that. Okay, let's play one.
I grew up in Brooklyn, Farragut Projects, and it takes a village to raise a family. My mom was a single mom. Where you grew up, was there a village that took care of everybody?
Hmm.
Oh, that's a beautiful question.
What was your village, Tony?
Well,
Or who was in your village?
yeah, I mean, I think my village was my family first and foremost, but and my extended family,
Hmm.
cousins and grandparents and
Did
like
they
that.
live close by?
A lot of them did lived in the
Yeah.
Los Angeles area, but then someone lived on the East Coast, my mother's family, so that wasn't so bad. But also in our street, as I said at the beginning, we could, we got on our bikes and went around, and everyone's parents kind of looked after everyone's in like so many communities, if you were misbehaving, your parents found out when you got home. Uh, so it gave you a sense I gave me a sense of security and belonging, I think,
Yeah.
and sense that always that our home was always the landing pad, a sense of place, which I really valued, being able to come back home, knowing that, I got to be home by 6 o'clock, and my mom would be there, and there would be food on the table, and there were the rituals that were, I took for granted, of course, at the time, but I'm really valued.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Let's do another one. I love that we have these questions.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Kerry and Tony, this is Fran from Austin, Texas. My question is, what was your favorite childhood game that you played on the street you grew up on?
That's a good one.
And that is a good one.
What was yours? I'll tell mine, but you first.
Well, I think my favorite thing, we played a version of hide and seek, but using the entire neighborhood.
Whoa.
So we would be like on our bikes, and there was just up the street from my house, there was a kind of a circular street, there was like just went around a block, called Crestline Drive, and we would we'd all gather and count, and then one person would be it, and then everyone would speed off on their bikes and hide within a certain kind of perimeter area, and so you'd be in bushes or behind someone's house, or that was really fun and crazy. And
Gosh.
yeah, as soon as you'd go looking in the wrong house and have a dog come after you, or some neighbor lady yelling at you. But yeah, that was
Get out of my yard.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. We had I lived there was a set of 4 buildings that are still called Jamie Towers, and in the middle there was a pool, and like a pretty large pool that we used in the summertime. And there was this crazy game called All Sharks Under, where it would start with one person who was the shark, and their job would be to swim from one side of the pool to the other side of the pool without coming up for air. So you would make somebody a shark by pulling them up and making them come to the surface. I mean, when I describe it, it's actually a tremendously dangerous game. Like I was describing it to my kid's swim teacher, and she was like, "Don't ever teach your kids that game. That's horrifying." But we loved it. I mean, for hours and hours, we would be all sharks under. You'd have to call all sharks under. You dive in and swim to the other side without coming up for air. And I was the first girl in my neighborhood who played all sharks under. It was like a real guys game at the pool.
Wow.
So I was No, nobody ever got hurt that I remember. But we all learned to hold our breath for a really long time. And you'd have sometimes like 4 kids trying to pull you up to the surface, and you'd be trying to just get to the other side of the pool. It was crazy.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, hence your love of water.
I love to swim. Yeah. Yeah. That's where a lot of that began. Yeah. I mean, I don't have a memory of not knowing how to swim. I've always been a swimmer.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do one more question from the audience.
Hey, kid. Hey, Tony. Tell us about the time that you got in trouble as a kid growing up on your street.
Okay, tell us about a time that you got in trouble on the street you grew up on. I think he's trying to incriminate me. He's trying to get me to admit to my crimes.
That's hilarious.
Such a perfect Earl Washington question.
That is such a perfect Earl Washington question. Let me count the ways, Earl. I was constantly in trouble as a kid, some of which I probably shouldn't talk about in public. Well, I can tell one where it wasn't so much getting in trouble, like, punished by my parents. Oh no, I'll tell you one.
Okay.
I already mentioned one kid, I got hit by a car, so that was really awful. And I was being
That's
stupid on a
terrible.
skateboard. When I was a young teenager,
Uh-oh.
I my my best friend was a girl named Robin, and I snuck out of the house. I'd gone to bed, and about 9 o'clock at night, my mom said I couldn't leave. I wanted to hang out with Robin, and she was like, "No, you can't." So I snuck out my window and climbed down the side of the house and went to Robin's house and was hanging out for a couple of hours. And I came home and snuck back in. I climbed up to the roof again, went in my window, and I heard my mom and my stepdad arguing.
Oh.
And I peeked out the door, and I had I had stuffed my bed to look like I was sleeping. And I came in and noticed that my bed was torn apart. And I was like, ooh, that's not good. And I heard my mom and my stepmother arguing, like, where is he? And I'd been gone for years, and they were freaking out that I was not there, because now it was about 11 o'clock at night. And all of a sudden, I heard a car pull up in front of our house, and it was my father.
Oh,
and my parents were divorced, and while they were very good about us kids, they did not visit each other. Like,
they were not hanging
Dad
out.
showing up at 11 o'clock at night on a Sunday night before school was not good.
Oh.
He comes in the house, and they're all talking, like, where is he? We don't know. And did you call so and so? And they're like, and so I'm at the top of the stairs listening, going, what do I do? I mess up my hair, and I'm like in my underwear, and I walk down the stairs and go, hi, is anybody looking for me? Did I hear you guys talking about me? Was someone looking for me?
No.
Pretending like I hadn't been out. And they all looked up the stairs, and I could see them almost all burst out laughing because it was so ridiculous what I was doing. So yeah, I got in a lot of trouble for that.
You've been getting in trouble with the ladies for a long time.
Yeah. That's. Oh well, yeah. There you go, Earl.
Started early. He's gonna love that answer, by the way. That's right up his alley. That's perfect. I had a similar one where I had a bunch of friends. I was bringing friends home from this theater company I was in as a kid, and we were supposed to get off the bus and go straight to my apartment. But I had another friend in the building whose mom was at work in the afternoon. So, we wanted to hang out without any adults. So we got off the bus and went to her apartment first for like an hour and a half. And then we went to my apartment. I was like, we just got here. We just got off the bus. And unfortunately, the window in my mother's bedroom looked right down onto the bus stop. So she had seen when we had gotten off the bus an hour and a half earlier.
You can't trick Valerie, no way.
There's no tricking Valerie Washington. She sees all, she knows all.
Yeah.
And she did that awful thing that I have done as a parent now, where she asked me the question, like waiting for me to lie, like, what time did you get off the bus?
Yeah.
And I stepped right into it.
Oh yeah.
Oh, so terrible. So terrible.
So what was your punishment? Do you remember?
What?
What was your punishment?
This is probably going to be very controversial, but I was never grounded as a kid ever. And I was never hit. I had like consequences where I had to like call and apologize, and I had to do extra errands. And I think that it may have been one of the times where I lost the privilege to go somewhere, but there was not a lot of punishment in my household. It was the devastation of disappointing my mother was really enough for me. I was mortified, just mortified. I mean, I remember weeping in front of her, like, I'm so sorry, because she said, how will I ever trust you again? And that was my punishment, was like knowing that my mother didn't trust me, and that I would have to earn her trust in real ways going forward. That was the punishment.
I think that's so effective. My parents were of a generation where punishment was like very specific. And it sort of made me scared of my parents, particularly my dad, but not necessarily a deterrent to misbehavior.
That's right.
With
And it meant like you misbehave and you don't tell them.
Yeah, to really talk to our kids. And I must say the thing of disappointing or them feeling having to take responsibility or really think about what they did actually was really effective. I don't know.
Accountability. It really taught me a different kind of accountability. If you could bring anything back from the street you grew up on into your present life now, what would it be? Like, it sounds like the dinner ritual you kind of did bring forward into your life, but are there other things about that time, about that house on Tiger Tail, that street, that you would want to bring into your life now?
Other than my mom, who passed away.
Mm.
Yeah, one of the things, we lived in a pretty bohemian household, and because both my mom and stepdad were artists, and my mom had been an actress in the theater before that, and so there were always artists in our, and the door was kind of always open. So we had sort of impromptu, like, sort of salon is too pretentious a word, but there were always gatherings of really weird, interesting people, and especially in that era of the 60s and 70s, people were out there. So,
Yeah.
That sense of collecting interesting people and having, your home be a gathering place is something I really loved. And I have, to some degree, redo the jam and do the same thing, but not to the degree that my mom did, because it was also invited a lot of chaos and there were some weird characters floating in and out of 473 Tiger Tail Road.
Oh, I love that. Well, thank you for saying what you said about your mom too. I feel like I just know how lucky I am to have both of mine still. So that was really moving when you said that. And yeah, that sounds really fun. It's what I miss. It's
by the way.
What?
If you had known her, my mother would have loved you.
Oh, I love her. She did good. She did good with her youngest. She did good. So I have one final question for you, which if you've seen these interviews, you know what it is. It's your sexy alter ego name, which is it's the name of your first pet, and then this name of the street you grew up on, which I mean, you're already off to a great start with Tiger Tail as your last name.
You bet.
But what was the name of your first pet?
Arthur. Arthur Tiger Tail is my sexy movie name, or sexy whatever name.
That is that's extraordinary. Arthur has a good like 70s porn vibe.
I was gonna say Arthur is sort of like 60s or 70s porn stuff.
Yeah. Arthur Tiger
Could have been
Tail.
a character in in the P.T. Anderson movie. What was it with Mark Wahlberg?
Boogie Nights. Yes.
Boogie Nights guy.
Yeah.
Arthur. He was like the older guy.
He was like the mentor.
Mark Wahlberg the ropes.
The mentor.
The mentor with the big fat belly. Yeah. Arthur Tiger Tail. You got a cigarette? Here's how it goes. Trixie, come over here. We're going to show them and kill a few things. Yeah. Okay.
Oh my God. Well, I'm going to make you watch my mom's episode so you can hear her sexy alter ego name.
Oh,
it's pretty,
I'm not
pretty
sure
great.
I can handle that. Okay.
It's pretty great. Thank you so much. This has been so great. I cannot think of a better way to spend President's Day than with my favorite president.
Yeah, thank you. I love you, and I'm grateful you asked.
I love you so much. I miss you. We have to get together. We need to gather our Scandal fam.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah,
It's
overdue. It's overdue.
Yeah.
Okay. Love you.
All right.
Have a great holiday.